Good morning. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. What I want to share with you is partially based on a lecture that I heard from Rabbi Moshe Weinberger years ago at a convention of the RCA, the Rabbinical Council of America. So there is a famous story leading up to the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. And it's the kind of story it's really worth reviewing every year. And the story goes like this. It's told in the Talmud at great length. The Romans had laid a siege around Jerusalem. Now, originally, Jerusalem had internal water and also gigantic stores of food that could have lasted out the Romans for many years. But there were two factions inside Jerusalem. One faction that wanted to wait out the Romans, and one faction that was more aggressive that wanted to go fight the Romans. And since the two factions could not agree, the younger, more militant faction burned the food stores. Again, this is a Jewish faction inside Yerushalayim. They burned the food stores, which means that now the residents of Jerusalem did not have enough food to be able to outlast the Romans. And, of course, the Jews were greatly outnumbered by the Romans, both in size, and in number, and in power. And with the waning food supplies in Jerusalem, it was only a matter of time that the Jews would be able to hold on to Jerusalem. It was only a question of days before they were going to be overrun and killed and everything in Jerusalem destroyed. And they faced at that time the real possibility they felt, they feared, of the end of Judaism. God forbid. So the religious leader in Jerusalem at that time, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, came up with a plan. He managed, and it's a long story how he managed to do this, he managed to have himself smuggled out of the city in order to be able to go meet the Roman general on the other side. And he held this secret negotiation with this Roman general. His name was Vespasian. He later became Caesar. And he offered, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai offered, the following difficult and controversial settlement. Included in the words, Tein Li Yavneh V'Chachomeha. Give me, he said to Vespasian, Yavneh and its scholars. In other words, what he meant to say is, we will give up the Beis Hamikdash because it's doomed. We will give up Yerushalayim, as hard as it is, because it is doomed. We have no way to defend it. We will even give up our national sovereignty. We will cease to be a nation. But at least allow Jews to survive. Don't wipe us out. Allow us to move to the northern part of Israel. Around the area at that time was Yavneh, around the area of Tiberias, Tiberia, Tzvat, those areas. And allow us to be able to reestablish religious life in the north, to be able to continue studying Torah, teaching Torah, practicing the mitzvos of Torah. Without the Beis Hamikdash, we recognize, without Jerusalem, as painful as it is for us, without any national identity or sovereignty, but at least Judaism and the Jewish people will survive. And that's what happened. This deal was accepted. And that's what happened. And Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai's negotiation was very strongly disputed and controversial. Not everyone thought that he acted the right way. And it's a very important subject within history, coming even to modern times. Was he right in what he suggested? We'll leave that for another time. But I want to share with you the insight of Rabbi Avraham Kook, first Chief Rabbi of Israel, who says that these 4 Hebrew words, Tein Li Yavneh V'Chachomeha, are the intersection of the 2 eras of Jewish history, which correspond to the 2 major ideas or trends that form a tension within the collective soul of the Jewish people. The first idea is a spiritual idea. The idea of Judaism as a sense of passion, a longing for God, a yearning for God. We are, in this sense, on fire with love of God. This is expressed so beautifully in Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, written by Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. And this is characterized by the power of imagination within the Jewish people, by the fire of love of God and the Jewish people. That's one fundamental trend and idea. The second religious idea is the concern with how do we serve God? What are the practical observances that we should do or should not do? Now, of course, both of these ideas are important and necessary. In fact, they can't even really be separated. One feeds the other. One is based on the other. But the question is, which comes first? Where's the emphasis? Where's the emphasis? Which one is the priority? And Rav Kook explains that when the Beis HaMikdash was standing, the spiritual idea was dominant. There was direct, dramatic contact with God through prophets, through service in the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, where there were miracles occurring daily, that people could see with their own eyes the connection between themselves and God. The offering of sacrifices, karban. Remember, we've discussed this before. The meaning of the word karban, as the Ramban explains from the Hebrew word karav, means an action, a process where I come closer to God. That's the purpose of it. And then, Tein Li Yavneh V'Chachomeha. We lose the Beis HaMikdash. We lose Jerusalem. At least we can keep Torah. At least we can teach and practice. At least we can observe mitzvahs, even if we no longer have prophets and priests. At least we have scholars. And there's a shift in the emphasis from the religious, spiritual idea, a shift from the era of the fiery spirituality to the rational, the pragmatic, the particular, because that's all we had left. It's a shift from the forest to the trees. It's the shift from the bigger picture of what it means to be a Jew, a shift from the spirit of the law to a narrower focus of how to act as a Jew. a focus on the letter of the law. I'm not saying this now to criticize the decision of Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, although many do, but that's not my point now. Perhaps, certainly in his eyes, it was a necessary shift. It saved Judaism, perhaps, but it still brought, in Rabbi Kook's words, a pain into the world. The flame of love throughout this era of the last 2,000 years has been much harder to find as a result of the Churban. On Wednesday night, as Tisha B'Av begins this year, when we sit on the ground and we fast and we cry, we must understand what it is that we are missing. We're missing the destruction of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, yes. We're missing the murder of millions of Jewish people. Throughout history, we commemorate those episodes of the Crusades, of the Holocaust, persecution, the dispersal and the exile of the Jewish people, all of that, yes. But also, and not just also, but underlying everything else, we mourn the need for having to offer Li Yavneh V'Chachomeha. We mourn the loss of spirituality. We mourn the loss of the fire of love of God. We mourn the loss of the shift from the forest to the trees. We mourn Jews doing religious actions without feeling, praying words without understanding, without connecting to God. And if we are honest, we will recognize how pervasive that is. And on Tisha B'Av, we recognize, we appreciate the source of that, where that problem comes from. And therefore, on Tisha B'Av, we must cry bitter tears precisely because so many Jews today take it for granted that all too often dry, rote observance is what Judaism is. That's all there is. But thank God, this is changing. Rabbi Kook offers an amazing insight into our generation. He was writing 100 years ago, and it is even more so today. As we get closer to the coming of Mashiach, the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash and the Messianic era, there is a return to a spiritual era. If we look around ourselves, not pervasive, not everywhere, but there is here and there and growing a reawakening in the world. We see it all around us, the popularity of spirituality, the popularity of Kabbalah, even when it's misunderstood, the popularity and the attraction of mysticism, again, even when it might be misunderstood. These things are generally misunderstood and abused. But the fascination of the world tells us something crucial about our time. Rabbi Kalonimus Shapiro writes about our generation how the human soul relishes sensation. It's not enough for us to just do actions because our parents did these actions. We're trying to find meaning more and more. And we need to try to find meaning and significance and to connect. What does it do to me? This is a trend that we see. And we need to work on that. But the first step is to realize what we have lost. To realize the impact of Li Yavneh V'Chachomeha, where there was a change in era, a change in focus. And that is the ultimate task this Wednesday night and Thursday on Tisha B'Av, where we pray, may we finally learn this lesson and get on with connecting to it. The spiritual fire of passion, in addition to the technical performance of correct actions, to see the trees, but also, again, after 2,000 years, to see the magnificent forest. That's the goal we set for ourselves as we prepare to mourn and hopefully recover what we lost, what we miss as a result of the destruction. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you all soon in person.